Before the podcast begins, I would like to give a trigger warning to talks about depression, suicidal thoughts, and some childhood traumas. Thank you. Hey everyone, my name is Austin James, and I am so excited to welcome you to the first podcast episode of Beneath the Surface. If you don't know who I am, my name is Austin. I am 21 years old, and I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. Over the past year and a half, I have begun work working and showing interest in mental health advocacy work. And I have self-published two poetry books. There's a Light and the Journey Home. And I am currently working on some more fun projects in that matter. I am so excited to begin this journey of Beneath the Surface because I've always turned to podcasts, especially in the past 2 years. I have turned to podcasts as an outlet to kind of stress relief, listen to some people talk for an hour, and it kind of just got my mind off of things. The one thing I noticed about podcasts, though, is I haven't been able to find one solely based in mental health. That's only mental health based. There's nothing else, just kind of talking and opening up about the struggles and getting really down and dirty and discussing the things that people are scared to talk about. And that's what I'm here to do. I am a big firm believer in it hasn't been created, why not create it yourself? So that's what I did. I have been working on making this podcast a thing since the beginning of this year, and I'm so excited to finally now put it together and start this journey. I am so excited. I am a little bit nervous because this is something new. But I really hope that everybody listening can take something away from anything that is said from this podcast or any future one that we publish. The biggest reason I do what I do, and of course, I don't have a big following. I'm, not very well known, but even still, I continue to strive and do what I do every day and every book that I publish because if I can help one person with by sharing my story, then it was worth it all. And I want everybody to know that is listening right now. If you are struggling, if you feel that there is no hope and you think that this is what your life is going to be like, there is always an end. There is always a light. And you are not alone in this struggle. You are not alone in this battle. And if something that I say in this podcast at all really resonates with you, then my job is done. I hope that you can listen to this and you can find comfort in it. And I really would love, for this to be a community. On my website, there is a comment section under the tab podcast where you can post your comments and you can ask questions, and I'll be happy to address them on the podcast because this is new and this is not going to be, there is no map and there is no guidebook for starting a podcast. And so I would love to hear your feedback, your comments, your questions. That would mean the world to me. So I thought for the first podcast, I figured I can tell my story from the very beginning and kind of just get vulnerable and share with you all of my journey through mental health, through growing up, and everything in between because it is quite the story. And if hearing my story brings comfort to somebody, that's perfect for me. And I know that hearing stories of other people that have been through similar things and similar situations that I have been has definitely brought me a lot of comfort. I do want to give a warning. Like in every single podcast, I'm always going to post this warning. There are conversations of depression, suicidal thoughts, sexual abuse, family abuse. And if there is triggering to you at all, I advise you maybe click off and I hope that you can find the resources to help talk to somebody and kind of put closure to that chapter in your life. So let's get right to it, shall we? So I'm going to start. I was born in 2004, and the first couple of years of my life, not that I really remember it, but I do know they were kind of rocky. My parents did not have a good relationship, and unfortunately, they split. And I'm not going to tell anybody else's story here, but my mom went down a pretty dark path, and my dad took custody of me. Um, and also, I want to apologize. Side note, if I say 100 times, I'm so sorry. This is the Austin James podcast, and Austin James loves to say but that's just a side note. So my dad took custody of me, and he married my wonderful stepmom when I was 2 years old, and they raised me. Um, Essentially, my stepmom took a huge role in my life, and I can say with 100% certainty, I would not be where I am without her. So, growing up was a little complicated because I never really understood, and sometimes I still don't really understand how to handle, or not even how to handle, but how to manage a relationship with your stepmom while also handling or managing a relationship with my birth mom. My birth mom and I have had a very slippery slope relationship due to our own personal beef, I guess you can say. And while I was a kid, unfortunately, there were a lot of instances where child services would come into the picture. There would be times that I wouldn't know if I was going to get taken away from my stepmom and my dad, or, if I would ever see them again. It got a little scary at a time. Every 3 to 6 months, a officer would show up at my door, and we'd have to have a conversation, and it's really scary. And as a kid, you don't know what to think. You're a kid, and I do believe that kids should not have to go through that. And I'm not upset that it happened. I definitely feel like it made me stronger as a person now, that I can look back on this and I can say that I survived. And that's what's important to me, is that through everything that I'm about to tell you, I survived, and I'm sitting here today to tell my story. So, from the age of, I'll say, 2 to, I don't know, 10 maybe, I don't really remember clearly, child services kind of was in and out of my life, and it was kind of dark. And I remember a lot of times, I can look back even now on childhood pictures of myself, and I wasn't really smiling. I was kind of a miserable kid, and I was very to myself. I was very shy, and I was just honestly really scared. Um, that stuff kind of messes with your head, especially when you don't know what is going on and why these people are here and why these people are asking you questions. Fast forwarding a little bit to middle school, I was in the 7th grade when my mom moved away to another state, and she had been back and forth for a long time. She would move for a couple of years, and then she'd come back home, or she'd move for a month and come back. But this time she didn't. And it kind of changed me a little bit. It was different, it was new, but it was also, in a way, kind of freeing. It was me not having to worry about getting taken away from my parents or child services coming to my door. I kind of just got to live my life. And at that time, I really started to discover who I was. I discovered that I was gay, and that was really tricky, especially as a young teenager. I didn't really know what that meant. At 13 years old, I came out of the closet, which is kind of young, but I knew who I was all along, and I knew that I was happy with who I was. It just was difficult because kids around me weren't like that. I went to a middle school where there wasn't many gay people, or there wasn't many people part of the LGBTQ community. And so I kind of had to figure that out for myself. I got pretty lucky in the parent department that, I was able to be who I was at home. And, you know, I'll never forget one of the best memories I have from that time was I was really scared during that journey of coming out to everybody. And when I told my stepmom, we had a very long conversation. And a couple days later, we got a package in the mail, and she had bought me these rainbow heart stickers. And that to me was so, I can't even put it into words. It just meant the world to me because something that I felt for a while was wrong and it was not right, to be able to see that my family loves me for who I am meant the world to me. And it really helped me become this person that I wanted to be or go in the right direction. And unfortunately, in middle school, I was bullied a lot for being the openly gay kid, and I was very flamboyant, and that was, kind of torture for me, was having to go to school every day, hear faggot as I walk down the hallway, or get made fun of in class for just being me. And that just that kind of messed with me too, because at home everything was so nice and I was could be who I am, but the minute I walk out the door, I kind of have to hide myself a little bit. The world is a scary place, and even now, almost 10 years later, it's still scary. And I just, I kind of went into a little dark path, and I was ready to be away from that and go to a high school that accepted me and who would just love me for me. And I was so excited to start that journey. And I guess the one thing looking back on it now from middle school that I really held on to, and I still hold on to, was my drama family. I don't really talk to anybody from that time, but just to be able to look back on the memories of me on the stage doing theater was the happiest I ever was, because I was me. Someone recently asked me, what is it about musical theater that I'm so drawn to and so passionate about? And I think that is one of the best questions I've ever been asked. And the truth is, because musical theater has such a special place in my heart, because you can be on stage and you're playing a part, but in real life, that was me. All of those performances, me doing all of those crazy dances and saying those lines, that was me. And I got to be myself and not be judged for being me, but it looked like I was a character, and I kind of hid behind those characters. But on the stage, whenever those lights are shining, that was only me. And I just felt the most me on that stage. And that is something that I still sometimes I long for. I'm in a much different position now, but there are times when I would just wish I can get on a stage and dance, because that was where I was free and where I was in a judgment free zone. And when I would get off the stage and hear everybody loving everything that I did, that made it all worth the while, because I got to entertain people in a way that's different. And it was me. It was just Austin, but it was disguised as a character. And that felt so good to me. So, eighth grade comes around and it's high school application time, and I had my heart set on one school. And I applied and I auditioned for the theater program. And later on that year, acceptance letters went out and I didn't get in. And it broke my heart, because that's where my heart was. I knew that I wanted to go to this school, and to get that rejection letter really messed with me. But I didn't give up. I applied again, and second round of applications, I didn't get in again. And again, my stepmom, being the amazing uh, person that she was, she wrote a very strong letter to the school and explained safety issues and was kind of honest. and she got me into that school. And I thank her. Even if I don't say it to her personally, I can say confidently anytime I think about my time at that high school, and I said this was because she pushed and she knew how much I wanted to be there, and I got there, and it was one of the best times of my life. Unfortunately, freshman year of high school was rough. One thing about me is I don't really do too well with change. It's always been a difficulty of mine. It still is to this day. I just handle it a little bit better. And freshman year, I went down a dark path. I was skipping classes. I wasn't doing my work. I just didn't care. And I got myself into a lot of trouble. I did some things that to this day I can't talk about because I'm embarrassed to talk about it and I'm ashamed of. And I really hurt my family. And I really saw a different side of them, especially my mom and my dad, that I've never seen before. And kind of it kind of struck me, and it kind of really set things in tone for me. And I became very depressed. I kind of lost myself, and I would look in the mirror and I didn't see myself. I just saw this person, and I knew that I had to change and I had to grow up a little bit and realize that this is going to follow you wherever you go. You're in high school and you got to grow up. And I worked hard and I slowly changed and became a slightly better person. And sophomore year came around. I started the year off strong. I was attending all of my classes, I was doing my work. And in October, we lost one of my classmates. She tragically died in a car accident. And that kind of hit me differently. I was friends with her, I knew her. I wasn't super close to her, but still, the idea of a girl that I went to school with, who I had conversations with in the hallway, was gone, and she was my age. Like, that was really scary, and that could have been anybody. And that kind of really affected me in a way that I didn't think it would, and it's still something that I carry with me. And so that was a loss that I had to cope with, and that was kind of a loss that was closer to my heart than I was used to. But thankfully, I had friends, I had a counselor that really helped me through it. And then a month later, I lost my great grandma, and that was the worst pain I've ever felt in my entire life. My great grandma, she was 98 years old, and she was my best friend. She was my rock. She was my world. I loved her. And almost 6 years later, I still have a hard time talking about it because it was the first close loss I've ever had in my life. I was 14, 15 maybe. Yeah, I was 15 years old. And it's something I'll never forget because my grandma Toby was someone amazing. She never judged you. She never had a bad thing to say about anybody. All she did was she loved, and she loved hard, and she loved strong. And that is something I carry with me to this day. She was the light in this god awful world, and she was the real glue to our family. That loss is still affecting our family to this day, almost 6 years later. And that sent me into what I now know as severe depression. I kind of just lost myself. I lost my reason for being. I didn't know who I was, and I didn't know if I would ever come back from that. My my head kind of went into a really dark space, and I didn't think I was going to come back from that, but I did. And I continue to tell myself this is not what she would want. She wants you to live your full life. She would want you to keep going because she's still going to be there. And I can positively say that she is still here with us because I get my signs all of the time from her. There are certain times that I don't even realize that I need to just know that she's watching over, and she shows me that she does. A very big thing in my family that I guess I've like taken from my family is we're a big family. Like, we believe in numbers, and there are signs and numbers. And my grandma's birthday was February 12th, and there are certain times where I will randomly look in the at the time, or I'll be at work and I'm doing math and the numbers will come out 212. And to me, that's a really big sign that she's there and she's watching and she's caring and she's showing me that she's along this journey with me. And that's what I use to keep going. And so, going through that loss, experiencing that for the first time, and having to continue life with that loss was scary. It was new and it was not something I wanted to get used to. And 3 months later, COVID happened. And COVID was quite a time. I don't know, it just was something that nobody has ever experienced before, being locked in your house for like 2 years, seeing the same four walls every day, seeing the same people every single day of your life, not leaving, not going anywhere. That's crazy. And at that time as well, I was still going through the loss of my grandma Toby, and I was still trying to figure out who I was in this world. And I was turning 16, and I was celebrating in my bedroom, filming TikToks for my birthday because everybody was isolated. Nobody could do anything. And I just lived. I didn't think, and I had no future goals. I couldn't plan anything for the future because nobody knew what the future looked like. So, coming back to real life after being locked in your house for 2 years was really scary. I went back to high school in person as a senior. And now you have to make college decisions and apply for colleges and pick what you want to do for your life. And I didn't know. I was just locked in my house for 2 years. Who's going to know what they want to do? So I did know at the beginning of my senior year that I wanted to do everything I wanted to do all of my college career. I wanted to do a show. I wanted to be on the volleyball team, and I wanted to do everything. And I was also working at the time. I had myself a part-time job. And the beginning of my senior year, I was helping out with the girls volleyball team, and that took up a lot of my time while also working. And then I joined the bowling team, which that took up more time between practices and games. And then going into fresh into the new year, January, I kind of had the month to just kind of breathe a little bit, but I was also practicing for the volleyball team. And then musical theater auditions came out, and I auditioned and I got in, and then I tried out for the volleyball team. I got on the volleyball team, and I was managing both from February till May. I was juggling the two of them. Whenever I wasn't at the musical, I was doing volleyball, or if I wasn't doing either one of them, I was working. So I kind of was just going and going and going and going and going, and never. And this is one thing that I regret, is I never took the time to realize how special and how lucky I was to get to experience all of those things, because just a year before, people weren't able to do that. And I kind of let my senior year slip by before my very eyes. And there I was at graduation. And then I committed to a school, and I moved upstate New York, and I went to school. And going away to college was really scary for me. I've always been a very close person with my family. I still to this day I have very strong views that like my family is everything and I love my family and it's messy and it's sometimes it can be hard, but I need to be close to my family because I need to see them. And I had just became an uncle, and so all of that together kind of broke me down, and I let it all bottle up, and I slowly stopped going to classes and I stopped caring about school, and I just got really depressed and I got really anxious. And the day before I left school, I let myself have a major panic attack that sent me to the hospital because I didn't know what was going on. I had gotten myself into a big fight with some former friends, and I sent myself crazy. I just remember in that moment my chest hurting so bad it felt like I was dying, and I couldn't breathe, and my mind I couldn't figure out what was going on. I couldn't see anything. My brain was just so foggy. And I went to the hospital and I was sitting in that room by myself getting tested and making sure that I was okay. And they came in and just said, "You're having a severe panic attack." And I don't ever remember having something like that before. And I kind of just like took a step back and I was like, what is happening? And that next day, I had broke down bigger than I have in a really, really long time. And I just couldn't stop crying for 2 hours. And I felt lost. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know what should do. And I remember calling my stepmom and telling her, I said, I need to come home. And that night, her and my dad and my sister, they drove up and they came and got me. And that was scary for me because I had for the next 4 years planned out. I was just going to be in school and I was going to do whatever I had to do to graduate. And now that's all not happening anymore. That's all in the past. And it's what should I do? And one thing that I failed to mention is before going to Potsdam, I had gotten a job as a receptionist in a hair salon. And for the 4 months before I went to school that I was working there, I had really developed an interest and an undertaking for hair and doing hair and learning about formulas for colors and just learning techniques. I just really found a fascination in it. And I had thought to myself for a hot second that maybe that was something that I was interested in doing. And even through college, I would do people's hair. I would give them a really bad blowout, or I would dye some of my friends' hair. Not very good, but I tried. And so when I got home from school, I had gotten my job back at the salon and I had met some really amazing people that I'm still friends with to this day. And I had really watched them and I had learned new techniques and learned new things about hair. And I really developed a passion for it to the point where I started going home and watching things or trying to learn how to do something or asking questions about it because I was so interested in it. And I said to myself, maybe this is something that I should actually think about. And in March of 2023, I had made a decision to move to Indiana with my birth mom because earlier in the year we had connected and I had done some really stupid actions and had made really dumb decisions that hurt my family again. And it kind of became really real to me. And I will never forget the look on my stepmom's face. And she just looked disappointed because I had time and time again hurt them for what reason I still don't know to this day. And I can't give a firm answer as to why I did what I did. All I know is that it was wrong and it wasn't fair to them and it wasn't right. And I had become this person that I didn't recognize and my family didn't want to be around. And looking back on it 2 years later, I don't blame them. For a long time after I moved to Indiana, I thought to myself, like, oh, they're mad at me, but, how could you just forget about me? And it's not that they forgot about me, it's that they needed to take space from me because I was affecting them negatively. And with them taking space, I had to come to reality really quickly that my actions do affect other people. And this isn't, childhood things anymore. I was 18 years old. I needed to learn that my actions have consequences. And that year of me living in Indiana really changed me. It showed me a taste of what adulthood was like and independence. And of course, there were some really dark bumps along the way, and I had had really big battles with my birth mom, and it ended up in me moving back to New York. But throughout that time, I found myself in a new way. I discovered my new work ethic, and I had found myself starting to realize things that I have done in the past or things that I had carried with me that just weren't healthy and that I had to change and I had to grow up because this is adulthood and that will follow you for the rest of your life. And I had to ask myself the question of, did I want that to follow me forever? And did I want to be this person that nobody wanted to be around? And so moving back to New York was scary. I moved back here with nobody. I had hurt all of the people close to me, and I had to not tell them, but show them that I'm a better person. One thing my dad has always instilled in me and my siblings was actions speak louder than words. And I could not agree more. And I am still learning and I'm still growing and I'm still evolving, and that's just part of life. But I can confidently say that where I stand now versus 2 years ago, I'm not that person anymore. I can look in the mirror and smile because I'm better than I was. So coming back to New York, being alone, it really it really scared me. It made me contemplate things. It made me kind of go into a darker headspace, and it made me really, really think, and not in a positive way. I began to contemplate taking my own life. It got really bad where I almost sent myself to the mental hospital. And I took a step and I called in my old therapist, and I had said to her, I said, I'm back in New York and I need help. And that was step number one for me to really help myself. I had found myself in a really dark place, and this was a dark place that I've never experienced before. I have unfortunately in the past have had some suicidal thoughts, but this was different because this was real, and I don't want to give too much detail, but it got very close and it got really scary. And I didn't know what to do. I had never experienced this level of fear. And for me, my suicidal thoughts were more fear driven than anger or sadness. And that looks different in everybody. And we can have a different conversation about that another time. And I would love to do a podcast dedicated to that. And I would love to have some of you guys comment if you're okay with it, can be totally anonymous. I don't want to share anybody's names or anything like that. But if you would like to share your story or what you've been through, and let's have an open conversation about it, I would love to do that. But for me, my suicidal thoughts were always out of fear. I was scared of being alone. I was scared of having to face myself. I was scared in a way. I was scared of myself because I for so long was unreasonable, unfair, and cruel. And I didn't want to be that person anymore, but I was scared that I didn't know how to turn that off. And I later realized that that was step one, was admitting when you're wrong and admitting that what you're doing is wrong. That's the beginning of it. And I didn't know that, and I didn't realize that. And the fact that I can say that now means a lot to myself, because I would never let myself get down the path that I've been on in the past. And beginning therapy and moving along as time, did, like, I start to find myself. And when I started to find myself, it felt good. It felt needed. It felt amazing. And there were bumps in the road. There were some times when my depression would just spike, and that was, it's a part of me, but I wouldn't let it control me. I had a big tendency in the past to let my depression control me and make my decisions for me. And I didn't have the leg to stand on and say, no, you need to get up and you need to do something about it. You can't just sit here and wallow in your own self-pity. And again, everybody's journey is different. My journey was, I let my depression make me lazy and made me just kind of be meh. But that wasn't feasible. I couldn't be meh. In the past, especially when I was living with my parents, people depended on me. I had responsibilities, and being depressed or being sad was not an excuse. And I kind of hid behind it. And again, I don't want anybody to take this as me saying, oh, if you're depressed, and you're not doing anything, like, that's bad. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, in my case in particular, I could have done something about it, and I just chose not to because I took the easy way out. And that was wrong of me. And I put that on a lot of people that I shouldn't have. And it took me a long time to own up to it and say, no, this is what you need to be doing. And you just have to do it. It's okay to be depressed and it's okay to be sad. But if you're going to let yourself kind of harm yourself, what is the point in that? Like, what good is that doing you? And it took me a really long time in therapy and conversations with people in my life for me to realize, like, no, this is like, it's okay to be depressed, but it's not okay to put that on other people. And I unfortunately did that a lot in my past. So through therapy and through hard work, I started to find myself. And in that time, I found that the one thing that I really wanted to do was go to beauty school and become a hairstylist. And it took me to quit my job and kind of be on my own a little bit to actually commit. And sitting here now, graduated, getting ready to take my tests to become a licensed cosmetologist. I'm glad I did it. I got comfortable where I was. I went back to the hair salon that I worked at, and I was just comfortable there doing things and letting my boss take advantage of me. And it took me to quit and get a new job that really set my eyes, like, no, the only person that's going to get you to where you want to be is yourself. And doing that was one of the greatest blessings of my life. And around that time that I decided to go to beauty school, I released my first poetry book, There's a Light. And that healed me in a way that to this day I still can't really explain. Telling my story through poetry kind of healed the part of me that was always scared and always embarrassed by being mentally ill, you could say. I don't think mental health is a bad word. I don't think that admitting that I have depression and I have anxiety and I have OCD and PTSD is a bad thing, because it doesn't define me. And mental health, and that's again one of my main reasons for doing this podcast, is for people to know that having a mental health diagnosis doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you less than. It makes you stronger, because you have to get up every day, and sometimes it's a fight. And the fact that you still get up and you do the things you have to do, that makes you a goddamn superhero. And it took me a long time to realize that. It took me a long time to realize that no, I'm okay. I have these things, yes, but it doesn't shape me. It doesn't define me. The thing that defines me is what you do with that. And that is so important to me. So now, almost 2 years later, I sit here and I have released my second book, and I'm starting this podcast, and I'm getting ready to become a licensed cosmetologist while also holding a full-time job, living alone, semi. I am proud of the person I am today, and I'm so grateful that I've taken the steps I've needed to get help and become a better person, because I look at that person 2 years ago and there are pictures that may come up in my memories on my phone, or I'll talk about things that I've done in those 2 years and I don't recognize that person. The person that was 18 years old, sitting on the couch in my parents' house, depressed and moping along, that doesn't make me proud. The person I am today makes me proud. And I can reiterate this again and again and again. I hope that through this podcast, and even through me sharing my story, at least one person can hear this and either relate to it or find comfort in it. Because if I had something like this, then I think it would have helped me out a lot. And again, like I said, if I can help one person in this entire world with whatever they're going through, it makes it all worth it. And so now that you know a little bit about me, I am so excited to start this journey with you all. I thank you all for listening, and I hope you tune in every Wednesday at 12 p.m. And I hope that you're able to find comfort and just know that you're not alone in whatever you're facing. And this podcast is one of the best things that I think that I will ever do in my life. And I am so excited for the future of this podcast. I have some really special guests to me that are going to come on the podcast and share their stories and have an open conversation about mental health. And again, if you are interested in commenting or asking a question that I can answer, or having a discussion about something, please go to my website, ajamesbooks.weebly.com, and go click on the podcast page and place your comments, questions, concerns, whatever it may be in there. And I promise you I will read it and we will have a discussion about it, because I don't want this to just be me talking all the time. I would love to hear your feedback. I would love to hear your stories, and I would love to share your stories if you're comfortable with it. And I think that if we all rally together as a community, we can end the stigma around mental health, and we can claim our word back and claim mental health as a superhero term instead of you know, a hateful word, because I feel like in this world that we live in, mental health is looked down upon, and I think that's truly disgusting. So again, I would love to thank you all for listening. I hope you listen in next week, and I look forward to the journey that we have ahead of us with Beneath the Surface. Thank you all so much, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye.